Welcome to Variant, where we love comics more than I hope Krypton is a good show. I'm your host, Arris. That's right, Krypton premieres this week, and if you've seen the trailers for the show, you know that the main villain for the first season is none other than Brainiac, who is easily one of Superman's coolest and most popular villains. And I've got to say, he looks and sounds absolutely amazing from what we've seen thus far. With that said, I see no better time to give you this guy's history than right here and now. Before I get into this, I want to let you guys know there are several different versions of Brainiac. For example, there's Brainiac 2, Brainiac 5, Brainiac 13, and so on. But for today's purposes, I'll be sticking to the main OG Brainiac that was created by writer Otto Binder and artist Al Plastino, and first introduced to us in Action Comics issue 242 in July of 1958. A little fun fact is that the term Brainiac, when referring to someone as a genius, originated from the character Brainiac in the comics. The word apparently didn't exist before Brainiac was created. Although some people do argue that the term came from the first computer, ENIAC. But like most people, I side with it coming from the comics. Anyway, Binder and Plastino combined the words brain and maniac, and bada bing bada boom, you have an awesome name. But now let's take a gander at how this villain set himself on track to become one of Superman's best villains. In Brainiac's first appearance in Action Comics 242 in 1958, we see Brainiac as a bald, green-skinned, pink shirt and boots wearing humanoid alien who comes to Earth and starts shrinking a bunch of cities, like Metropolis, Paris, and even Rome. He then placed the shrunken cities in big glass jars. We then find out the reason he's shrinking all these cities is to restore a planet that he used to rule. But before he does that, of course, he has to examine them first. So he takes tweezers to a shrunken New York and destroys the George Washington Bridge. He's literally like a kid taking a magnifying glass to an ant. Of course, it's then up to Superman to save the day. However, it doesn't go over well for Superman at first. When he first confronts Brainiac, he finds out that Brainiac has an Ultra Force shield that makes him impervious to anything Superman throws at him. Long story short, Superman willingly lets himself be shrunk in order to get past Brainiac's Ultra Force barrier and onto his ship, which back then just looked like a flying saucer. Anyway, once Superman goes all Ant-Man, he discovers a hidden bottle that Brainiac was hiding. And in this bottle is a city from Krypton called Kandor, which Brainiac shrunk and stole years before Krypton exploded. At the same time that Superman is making this discovery, Brainiac finishes collecting cities and returns to his ship to put himself into suspended animation. We then go back to Superman, who's still in the bottle that contains Kandor. He meets his father's old roommate, Professor Kandor, who helps Superman figure out a way to restore Metropolis and the rest of Earth's cities. But there's a catch. By the time they restored all of Earth's cities, there wasn't enough energy to restore Kandor. So with only one charge left and Superman still small, Kandor flies his rocket into the button that triggers the ray to hit Superman, and he regains normal size. Kandor did this because he said that Kandor could not let Earth be deprived of its great superhero. Superman then replies by saying something to the effect of, "You sacrificed your people for me. I'm grateful, but your city must forever remain tiny now." So Superman keeps the miniature Kandor safe in his Fortress of Solitude and says, "Perhaps I'll find a way to restore it to normal size and live with my people again. Someday. Who knows?" And just like that, we have Brainiac's first origin. Although it's not really much of an origin, we just learned that he's an alien that shrinks and steals cities. However, the character was retconned in 1964 with Superman issue 167. And it's here where we find out that Brainiac isn't an alien at all. He's actually a machine created by the computer tyrants of Kalu. He acts as a spy for them so they can invade other worlds. This is why he was given a non-computer appearance. The comic also tells us why he has those red diodes on his head. They created him with electrical terminals on his sensory nerves that he is unable to function without. So if you ever wondered why those things are on his head, now you know. We also learned that the computer tyrants could have given Brainiac a 12th level intellect, but instead they gave him 10th level intellect to prevent Brainiac from being superior and trying to dominate them. Pretty smart, if you ask me. DC decided to add this plot twist to Brainiac's origin because of a copyright issue with a toy computer called the Brainiac Computer Kit. But now it's time to move on to some story arcs. After his first appearance, Brainiac would every so often reappear to bug the heck out of Superman, like the time he tried to kill Lois Lane and Lana Lang, which led to Superman giving Lois and Lana superpowers in order to defend themselves. Then we have Superman issue 141, which is pretty important to Superman's history and mythos. It's in this issue that we learn just how Brainiac stole Kandor. And what's extremely ironic about him shrinking and taking Kandor before Krypton exploded is the fact that Kandor was the only city that believed Jor-El's warning about Krypton's impending doom. Yet out of all the cities Brainiac could have taken on Krypton, Kandor was the one he chose, effectively dooming the remaining Kryptonians to destruction. After that issue, we get some pretty goofy stories involving Brainiac, like the time he used red and green kryptonite on Superman, which gave him a third eye on the back of his head, forcing Supes to wear hats in order to hide it. Then you have the time Superman meets Brainiac as a baby. It's just all kinds of weird, but hey, that's comics in the 50s and 60s for you. Now, skipping some stuff here and there because remember, I'm only talking about the juicy important stuff, we stop next in the Bronze Age of comics, when lackluster sales prompted DC to shake things up a bit and redefine several aspects of Superman's series. It was during this time that DC gave Lex an updated look, including his now iconic green and purple mech suit. But they also redesigned Brainiac to make him look like a robot skeleton with a honeycomb-looking brain case of sorts in Action Comics 544 in 1983. He was given his now super iconic Skull ship as well, which we're also gonna see in Krypton, and it's one of the coolest ships in comics in my opinion, so I cannot wait. What's crazy about his Starship is that it's just an extension of himself, with the ship made to look like his skull with tentacle things coming from it. Anyway, this version of the character lasted until after Crisis on Infinite Earths, because with this being comics we're talking about, the new look for Brainiac didn't last either. Thankfully, his ship stayed the same, and that's a good thing. Jumping forward in the timeline yet again past stories like Panic in the Sky, Dead Again, the Doomsday Wars, and so on, brings us all the way to a very important part of Brainiac's history. And that's the 5-issue Superman Brainiac story that took place from Action Comics 866 through 870. This story was written by Geoff Johns and drawn by Gary Frank, the same creative team that's currently doing Doomsday Clock. In this story, Geoff Johns retcons Brainiac yet again, and we learn that Brainiac stole Kandor 35 years ago, and in current day is trying to shrink and steal Metropolis. Amongst all this, Superman is brought onto Brainiac's ship, where he's introduced to his new form, which is definitely where the Krypton show is pulling its influence from. In fact, most modern adaptations of Brainiac outside of comics like Injustice 2, Krypton, and so on pull inspiration from this very story. There's also a really cool 3-panel layout in this story that shows all the past versions of Brainiac, as Superman is talking to Supergirl in the Fortress of Solitude. Superman tells Supergirl who Brainiac is and how he's taken on several different incarnations of him. One of the things Superman says to her is through science he created other bodies to control. Some were organic, some were robotic. So I just thought that was an awesome way for Geoff Johns to acknowledge all the different retcons and incarnations of Brainiac over the past several decades for fans. I love when writers and artists give a nod to that kind of stuff and then even try to find a way to make it work in continuity. Anyway, by the end of this story, Brainiac's defeated when Superman knocks him out of his ship and into a swamp. You see, Brainiac's weakness is bacteria and disease, and it's his ship that provides him with the sterile environment he needs to protect him from those things. So being separated from his ship and thrown into a swamp where his body becomes covered with microscopic bacteria is pretty much a death sentence for him. But even though Soup saved the day, not everything is good, and his father, Jonathan Kent, suffers a heart attack and dies. And this brings us to the New 52, where Brainiac had a huge role in the Superman Doom story. There's a whole lot to it, but while everything is happening with Superman turning into Doomsday, or Super Doom as he's been dubbed, Brainiac is taking over everyone's mind on Earth, and he later reveals his plan to Superman. The reason why he's trying to control all minds on Earth is because, according to him, the combined psionic power of all the minds he has captured throughout the universe can bend reality to his will. And he wants that power to recreate his world, including his wife and son. Now you may be asking, wife and son? Yeah, the New 52 made a few alterations to Brainiac's origin, including the addition of his wife and child, who died when his world was destroyed. Then more recently, with DC Rebirth and Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps series, Larfleeze uses his Orange Lantern ring to control a robot that is apparently running on Brainiac 2.0 software. A robot that also looks exactly like the 1983 version of Brainiac. With that said, in Action Comics 976, it was confirmed during a flashback sequence that restored Superman's pre-New 52 continuity that the post-crisis, post-2008 version of Brainiac still exists in Rebirth continuity, and that Superman has in fact encountered him in the past. Meaning the robot Larfleeze was controlling was indeed one of Brainiac's drones and not Brainiac himself. Fascinating, I know. Lastly, Brainiac is apparently going to be a huge part of the upcoming No Justice storyline. It involves Brainiac showing up to Earth, but not to destroy it. Instead, he seeks to warn Earth's heroes and villains that there's a cosmic level threat coming, and that in order to defeat it, heroes and villains alike will have to team up. This is going to give us 4 different Justice League teams that are outfitted with Brainiac's technology. I cannot wait to read this. But now, how about some powers and abilities? As his name implies, Brainiac's main power is his mind. Originally, he only had a 10th level intellect, but it soon went to level 12. This gives him calculation abilities, enhanced memory, and advanced understanding of mechanical engineering, bioengineering, physics, and other theoretical and applied sciences. Lastly, I can't forget he has extensive knowledge of various alien technologies. Brainiac's mind is so powerful that his post-crisis incarnation said his brain is able to process and sort through the knowledge of over 490 octodecillion beings. Quite frankly, I don't even know how much that is, but it's a whole lot more than a trillion. Brainiac's mental powers also allow him to possess others, absorb information from other beings, transfer his freaking consciousness, manipulate computer systems, replicate multiple versions of himself, and exerting powers to transverse and control space and time itself. Yeah, this dude is no joke, but I'm not done yet. He's also incredibly strong. The exact level varies, but his strength usually rivals that of Superman. He also has a force field belt to protect himself. And of course, he has his shrinking ray, which he uses to capture and bottle cities. Hence one of his nicknames being the Collector of Worlds. Brainiac has several more powers and abilities which vary depending on what incarnation of him you are talking about. But overall, he's a technopath, telepathic, telekinetic, super strong beast you don't want to mess with. Having said that, he does have the weakness I mentioned earlier. Brainiac has been shown to be quite vulnerable to bacteria and disease, particularly when he's outside of his ship. So yeah, his weakness is germs. Hey, if Superman's weakness is a green rock, it's only fair that one of his main villain's weakness is something like germs. But now I know you guys probably want to read some Brainiac comics. So read Action Comics 242, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow story, Superman Doomed, Superman Brainiac by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, Panic in the Sky, and while not a reading recommendation, watch the Superman Brainiac Attacks direct-to-home video from Superman the Animated Series. It's amazing. Before we get to this week's buy list, we want to let you guys know about the great people at Verve who helped make this episode possible. Verve is an awesome digital platform that gathers channels from a bunch of our favorite content creators and puts them all together in one place. And for a limited time, the team over at Verve, spelled VRV, is offering you guys, the Variant Nation, an exclusive free 30-day ad-free trial of Verve Premium by going to vrv.co/variant or by clicking the link in the description below. That's 30 days to watch a ton of great content, including My Hero Academia Subbed, which is one of my favorite new animes. But they also have Dragon Ball Super and exclusive shows like Last Man and Season 4 of Bravest Warriors. Verve also features other great content like Rooster Teeth's Anime Ruby and Attack on Titan, which we are currently watching together on Variant Live, either subbed on the Crunchyroll channel or 100% dubbed in English on the Funimation channel. Verve Premium also gives you unlimited access to additional content from channels like Machinima, Cartoon Hangover, Curiosity Stream, and Mubi, all ad-free in 1080p. As if that's not enough, you can sync episodes ahead of time so you could watch them later. And now you could also watch your shows on the go without an internet connection through the Verve app for iOS and Android. You can download the Verve app now on your iPhone, iPad, Android, Roku, even your Xbox or PlayStation, and now Apple TV. So access is crazy convenient. Guys, I'm telling you, we use Verve a ton and we love it. So don't miss out. Go to vrv.co/variant. Again, that's vrv.co/variant, or click the link in the description below and get your free 30-day ad-free trial of Verve Premium now. And when you do, let us know what you're watching so we can check it out too. Again, the offer is only for a limited time, so jump on it right away. You'll thank me later. First up for Wednesday, March 21st, we have the Avengers issue 685. The Avengers are in a fight of their lives trying to end the Hulk's rampage, but nothing can stop the unstoppable. Here we have Mighty Thor issue 705. The epic showdown, years in the making, finally explodes across the heavens. Thor battles the unstoppable Mangog with the fate of Asgardia hanging in the balance. Now we have Nightwing issue 41. Nightwing has twice failed to stop the Judge, and if he falters a third time, Dick Grayson may never recover. Next up is Witchblade issue 4, Life After Part 4. Alex has survived her first major test as the Witchblade, but now a far more powerful foe has set its sights on taking her down. And to come out on top, Alex must fully embrace her role as the new Witchblade's host. And finally, we have Batman issue 43. The quest to end Ivy's domination heads toward a close, but can Batman offer Ivy redemption on the other side of this crime? And that brings another episode of Variant to a close, but remember, links for all our social media like our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, and website is in the description below. And if you like today's episode, be sure to subscribe and then hit the bell next to it so you're notified whenever we upload a new episode. But I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.